I'll be looking at Module 4, Lesson 27. Today we're going to be using tape diagrams to solve multiplication and division equations. So this is very similar to what we did in the last lesson, but now instead of looking at addition and subtraction, obviously looking at multiplication and division. So let's take a look. Let's see if we can start to illustrate this. 3z equals 9. So let's start by drawing 3 z's. And remember, z we do not know, so I don't have to put any lines in the three events, but I can just write a z in each one. So there's a z for each one. So this is 3z, and what is 3z worth? 3z is worth 9. So what does this show me? This shows me 3z equals 9. Now what am I going to do? Well, I want to know what 1z is worth. So in other words, I'm going to split these 3z's into 3 parts so I can figure out what each one is worth. So if I have just one of these parts, it's worth whatever 9 divided by 3 is. It's worth whatever 3z divided by 3 is. Well, what does that mean? Let's take a look. What did we do? We took 9 divided by 3. That must mean this is equal to 3. Z must equal 3. How do we know it's z? Well, that's because 3z divided by 3, that's the same thing as this. This right here means the same thing as if we were to take it like this, which is very similar to our do now. Z times 3, they mean the same thing. So what is z times 3 divided by 3? Of course, it's just z. So that's how we know this is just z. So basically, here's what we did. We took this right here, 3z divided by 9, and all I did was I divided both sides by 3. I divided both by 3. When I do that, 3z divided by 3, what did we say that is? We said that's just z. If I want to divide 9 by 3, that is, of course, equal to 3. So that is what z is worth in this situation. Let's see what you can do with or without tape diagrams. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next page. Next page says to try to use a tape diagram and algebra, and then on this last one I want to see what you can do as well. So let's see, 2a equals 16. So I've got 2a is equal to 16. So that's 2a. 2a equals 16. I'd encourage you to pause the video here and try to show the solution on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to show it right now. So let's see. I'm going to split it into 2 groups. So right here, what am I doing? I've got a, but I've taken, this is 2a split into 2 groups, right? Because of 1, 2. That means 16 has also been split into 2 groups. I'm running out of room here. But that would show us that a must be equal, right? 2a divided by 2 is a. A must be equal to 8. So let's show it over here algebraically. So what am I going to do to both sides? I'm going to divide them by 2. 2a, let's do it one side at a time. 2a divided by 2, that's just a. 16 divided by 2, that's 8. All right, one more opportunity here before we move on. Go ahead and take this one. You're going to try to look at 4c, and you're going to try to solve 4c when it equals 24. So again, same idea, give it a shot if you can. Come back, try to solve on your own. All right, so here we go. So I have 24, it's split into 4 groups. Let's split it into 1, 2, 3. Let's split it into 4 groups for real. So now I'm just left with c, and I've taken 24, and this is 24 if it were split into 4 groups. Same thing, it's 4c split into 4 groups, because this is 4c right here. So what have we done so far? All we've done is we've taken both parts of our equation and we've split them into 4 groups. So let's think about what this is going to be before we look at the tape diagram. What is 4 times c divided by 4? Well, remember, this is kind of the same idea as this right here. C times 4 divided by 4. It's the same idea as that. So what does that equal? This equals c. So you can say that equals c. Well, what's 24 divided by 4? 24 divided by 4 is 6. So c must be 6. So look, we've shown this both algebraically and with tape diagrams to verify our situation. Think if you put a 6 here, it'd be 6, 6, 6, 6. That's 4 6s. That would in fact be 24. Moving right along. Obviously, here's a good chance for you to pause and to try to solve this equation right here on your own, and then try to fill in these blanks in this, this box. So give that a shot on your own, and we'll come back in just a second. Okay, so hopefully you've given this a shot. So it's 15 times W equals 75. So this might be a bit difficult for you to see, so I'll write it a little bit larger right here. I've got 15W divided, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to divide both sides. Well, I want this to eventually be W, right? How can I do that? I can divide it by 15. Because 15 times W divided by 15, I could think of like this. 15 times W divided by 15. These two are worth 0. So that means it's just worth W. So now I just have to do 75 divided by 15. And I kind of know this one from clocks. This would be 4 times 15 is 60. So 5 times 15 must be 75. So that's how I get W equals 5 there. So let's go ahead and check and see. To solve we are solving multiplication equations. To solve a multiplication equation, divide, that's what we did to both sides. Divide both sides by the same number, or the same quantity would maybe be a better vocabulary word we could use. The goal is to get the variable by itself. By itself. So that's our wrap up of multiplication equations. Let's look at division equations. Pause and go back and rewatch some of that stuff if it was super confusing. So here we go. Next up we have y divided by 4 equals 2. So first of all, remember that fraction bar means y divided by 4. So let's think about this. We have y, and it's divided by 4, and it equals 2. So remember, this isn't much different than this, y divided by 4. And our goal is to try to make it so it eventually just says y equals. We want to get the variable by itself. Well, how could I do that? How could I change this into just y? So think about it like from the do now. How can you make it so y divided by 4 gets back to y? Well, we can multiply it by 4. This is exactly the same idea as our do now and the first part of our module. So I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by 4. And we know that because we've talked about the balance scale before. If you do something to one side, right, if you do something to this side, if you split it in half, we've got to keep them even in order to keep that equal sign the same. So what's y, let's do one side at a time. What's y divided by 4 times 4? We've already said right here that equals y. What's 2 times 4? That equals 8. So y must equal 8 here. Let's check and make sure that makes sense. So if I plug it back in, it should make a true statement. 8 is in there for y. What's 8 divided by 4? It's 2. Does 2 equal 2? Yes, so we must be correct. All right, let's try another one. So I've got b divided by 3 equals 4. b divided by 3 equals 4. So remember, our goal is to eventually get the b to be by itself. Remember, it doesn't mean anything different than this. Just because it's a fraction doesn't mean it means something different. So how can I make it just equal b? Well, I can take b divided by 3, multiply by b divided by 3 times 3. We have to do the same thing. So I do that to both sides. So what is b times 3 divided by 3? It's b. What's 4 times 3? It's 12. So b must be 12. Pretty simple examples of how we do this, but the steps are important because eventually those numbers are going to become much, much more complex. Let's go ahead and take a look at our last one. So here, this is where I would encourage you to, 1, don't use tape diagrams, and 2, try to solve this algebraically without any help. So here's your equation, 5 equals y over 2. Pause the video, try to solve this one on your own, see what you can do, and we'll be back in just a second. And hopefully you took both sides times 2 to end up with, well, what's y divided by 2 times 2? It's equal to y. What's 2 times 5? It's 10. And so 10 equals y. And if you're confused on that one, go back and look at some of the answers we had from the earlier part of the roadmap. If not, go ahead and you're going to try to solve this one, but I want you to change it. This should in fact be, let's do x over 11 is equal to 10. So try to solve that one on your own and fill in the blanks on there. Go ahead and pause if you need to and come back and see the solution in just a second. Okay, so I need to eventually make this equal to just x. Well, how could I do that? Well, this means x divided by 11. How to get that back to x? All we do is multiply by 11. So multiply this side by 11, and I multiply that side by 11. When I do this, this equals x, this equals 110. So to solve a division equation, which is what we've been doing in the second half, multiply both sides of the equation by the same quantity. The goal is to get the variable by itself. That is the name of the game when solving equations. How can you isolate the variable? How can you get it by itself?